Dating after 60 isn't what most people imagine. Should you start a relationship again at this stage? After decades of love, heartbreak, raising children, and building independence, one wrong choice can cost more than you think. This isn't about saying you shouldn't date, it's about understanding the realities women face after 60. In this video, we'll break down 5 brutal truths most women learn too late and why thinking twice could save you from stress, regret, or heartbreak. 1. Your peace becomes more important than romance. One thing many women notice after 60 is that their definition of happiness changes. When you're younger, love often feels exciting. There's chemistry, anticipation, emotional highs and lows. Even the drama can feel meaningful because it makes you feel alive. You have energy for it. You recover quickly from arguments. You bounce back from disappointment. But after 60, most women aren't looking for emotional roller coasters anymore. They've already lived through decades of responsibility, compromise, and sometimes chaos. They may have raised children, supported a husband's career, managed a household, gone through a divorce, or experienced loss. By this stage, peace feels earned. You finally have control over your time. Your mornings are quiet. Your evenings are predictable. You don't have to answer to anyone. You don't have to negotiate what to watch, where to go, or how to spend your weekend. That calm rhythm becomes deeply valuable. When a boyfriend enters the picture, even a good man, life shifts again. There are new expectations, daily messages, planning around someone else's schedule, emotional check-ins, small misunderstandings, different habits, different energy levels. Maybe he wants more attention than you're used to giving. Maybe he moves faster emotionally than you're comfortable with. None of this is wrong, it's just reality. But what surprises many women is how quickly companionship can start to feel like responsibility. Instead of feeling relaxed, they start feeling slightly anxious again. Not because the man is bad, but because relationships require emotional energy. And emotional energy feels different at 60 than it did at 30. You may find yourself thinking, I worked hard to create this calm life. Do I really want to disturb it? That doesn't mean love is a mistake. It means the standard is higher now. At this stage, a relationship shouldn't just be about not being alone. It should genuinely add to your peace, not compete with it. If being with him makes your life calmer, lighter, and more supported, that's beautiful. But if you start feeling tension, pressure, or emotional exhaustion, that's important information. After 60, peace is no longer boring. It's priceless. And any relationship that threatens that peace, even slightly, deserves careful thought. 2. You've worked too hard for your independence to risk it lightly. By the time a woman reaches 60, independence usually isn't accidental. It's something she built over decades. Maybe she stayed in a marriage for years and adjusted her needs around someone else's. Maybe she went through a divorce and had to rebuild financially and emotionally from scratch. Maybe she lost a partner and had to learn how to manage everything alone. Whatever the path, most women over 60 understand what it took to stand on their 2 feet. They know what it feels like to pay their own bills, to manage their own home, to make decisions without asking permission, to design their days exactly how they want. That freedom becomes deeply satisfying. When a boyfriend enters the picture, even a kind and respectful one, independence naturally shifts. Relationships always involve compromise. That's not a flaw, it's just how human connection works. You start adjusting your schedule, you consider his preferences, you may even spend more time at his place or invite him into yours. You may even begin talking about shared expenses or future planning. At first, it can feel exciting, like you're building something again. But slowly, some women realize they're giving up small pieces of autonomy without fully noticing. Maybe he expects you to travel with him more often than you'd like. Maybe he becomes comfortable staying over frequently. Maybe financial boundaries start to blur in subtle ways. None of this has to be dramatic. In fact, it rarely is. It happens quietly. And because women over 60 tend to value harmony, they may adjust without speaking up,
just to keep things smooth. The real issue isn't having a boyfriend, it's losing yourself in the process. At 30, if you give up independence and regret it later, you still feel like you have time to rebuild. At 60, rebuilding feels heavier. It's not impossible, but it's more exhausting. That's why moving slowly matters so much more at this stage. Healthy love should respect your space, your routines, and your financial boundaries. It should enhance your independence, not slowly replace it. If a relationship starts making you feel less in control of your own life, that's a signal worth paying attention to. After 60, independence isn't just about pride, it's about security, dignity, and stability. And anything that threatens that should never be entered lightly.
3. Emotional attachment can happen faster and feel deeper than you expect. There's a common assumption that emotional intensity fades with age, that by 60, people are more guarded, more detached, less likely to fall deeply. In reality, the opposite can happen. At this stage of life, social circles are often smaller. Children are grown and busy with their own families. Old friends may have moved away, drifted apart, or passed on. Daily routines can become quiet and predictable. So when someone new enters your life, calling you, checking on you, taking interest in your thoughts, asking about your day, it can feel surprisingly powerful. Attention feels different when you haven't had consistent romantic attention in years. Companionship feels warmer when your evenings have been quiet. It's not desperation, it's human nature. And because there's often more emotional maturity at 60, conversations can feel deeper from the beginning. You talk about real life, loss, regret, lessons, mortality, gratitude. That kind of vulnerability accelerates bonding. The connection can form faster than expected. The risk isn't loving someone. The risk is underestimating how central they can become in your life. When you're younger, you usually have multiple layers of activity: work, parenting, social events, busy schedules. If a relationship ends, there are distractions and new opportunities. After 60, life may be calmer, which means when someone becomes part of your routine, they become a significant emotional presence. You get used to the daily calls, the shared dinners, the weekend plans, the simple comfort of knowing someone is there. If that relationship ends, the silence can feel heavier than it did decades ago. It's not just losing a partner, it's losing structure, losing rhythm, losing a companion who would become part of your daily emotional landscape. And because there's an awareness of time, the quiet thought that I may not want to start over again, breakups can feel more final. That's why emotional pacing matters so much at this stage. It's wise to let connection grow steadily instead of diving in quickly, to maintain friendships and routines outside the relationship, to protect parts of your life that don't revolve around him. Love at 60 can be beautiful, calm, and meaningful, but attachment is still attachment, and it deserves awareness. Because emotional depth doesn't disappear with age, sometimes it becomes stronger. 4. Loneliness can quietly influence your decisions. Loneliness after 60 isn't dramatic, it's quiet. It's the empty chair at dinner. It's the silence in the house at night. It's weekends that feel longer than they used to. Even strong, independent women feel it sometimes, especially after divorce or widowhood. Even if you have friends, hobbies, or family, romantic companionship is different. There's a type of closeness that only a partner provides, and when that closeness has been missing for a while, the desire for it can become stronger than you realize. The challenge is that loneliness doesn't always announce itself clearly. It shows up as impatience, as urgency, as thoughts like, what if this is my last chance? I don't want to grow old alone. Maybe I'm being too picky. That subtle urgency can change your standards without you noticing. You may overlook behaviors that once would have bothered you. You may move faster than you normally would. You may accept emotional inconsistency just to avoid being alone again. Not because you're weak, but because companionship feels comforting. There's also something psychological that happens at this stage of life. Time feels more visible.
You become more aware that years pass quickly, so when someone comes along, there can be a quiet pressure to make it work. But relationships built out of fear rarely feel stable. If the main reason you're holding on to someone is because you don't want to return to silence, that's important to recognize. A healthy relationship should feel calm and respectful. It shouldn't feel like a rescue mission from loneliness. And loneliness itself isn't a flaw, it's a human emotion. But decisions made from fear of being alone often lead to compromises that create bigger problems later. Sometimes protecting your peace means learning how to sit with occasional loneliness instead of rushing to fill it. Because being alone is not the same as being unsafe, and being in a relationship is not the same as being secure. After 60, emotional clarity matters more than ever. If a relationship feels steady and respectful, that's worth exploring. But if it feels rushed, pressured, or driven by fear of being alone, slowing down is one of the wisest choices you can make. 5. Not every man has the same intentions. This is a hard truth, but it's important to face it honestly. At 60 and beyond, many women are in a position of independence they've fought hard to achieve. They have financial security, a comfortable home, savings, maybe even investments. They have routines and personal freedoms they didn't have earlier in life, and they know their worth. But that independence can sometimes attract the wrong kind of attention. Not all men are looking for genuine companionship. Some are genuinely kind, thoughtful, and respectful, but others may be seeking stability, convenience, or even financial advantage. It doesn't mean that every relationship is risky, far from it, but a smart approach is to stay aware of the signs that someone may not have the same intentions as you. For example, some men might focus too quickly on moving in or spending more time at your home, show unusual interest in your finances or possessions, become emotionally intense too fast, creating pressure. Avoid sharing personal history while showing strong interest in yours. Often these behaviors are subtle. They can feel flattering at first because attention after decades of independence feels rewarding, but over time, small compromises can start adding up, subtly reshaping your autonomy, emotional energy, and even your financial comfort. The key is balance. A healthy relationship enhances your life. It doesn't replace it. It doesn't demand that you compromise who you are or the stability you've built. Being cautious doesn't mean being suspicious of everyone. It simply means paying attention, setting boundaries, protecting the independence you've earned. Asking yourself, does this relationship genuinely make my life better, emotionally, practically, and personally, or is it slowly asking me to give up parts of myself? Many women over 60 learn this the hard way. They get attached, invest emotionally, and only later realize that the relationship was more about convenience or comfort than genuine connection. The heartbreak isn't just losing the person, it's losing the structure and independence that took decades to build. So the brutal truth is, not every man is looking for the same things, and at this stage of life, you can't afford to assume good intentions without observing actions over time. A boyfriend should add joy, companionship, and mutual respect into your life. If a relationship begins to feel like a risk to your independence or emotional stability, it's okay, even wise, to step back and reassess. Independence isn't a flaw, it's a hard-earned strength, and keeping it intact ensures that any love you choose to allow into your life truly complements it rather than complicates it. Dating after 60 can be beautiful, fulfilling, and meaningful, but it comes with unique realities. Peace, independence, emotional stability, and personal boundaries are far more important now than butterflies and excitement. Before entering a relationship, ask yourself, does this add to my life or does it complicate it? Loneliness may tempt you, but the right relationship enhances your calm. The wrong one disrupts it. Comment below, do you think companionship after 60 adds more joy or more risk? Let's discuss. And if you want more psychological breakdowns on relationships and age gap dynamics, subscribe. Here, we don't just romanticize love, we analyze it.